A law-abiding Ontario man was arrested and strip-searched by police because his 4-year-old drew a picture of a gun. I'm not making this up. Tonight on The Source. Jessie Sansone was picking up his kids from school this week. When he showed up, he was asked to go to the principal's office, so he did. There were 3 cops there who arrested him, handcuffed him, strip-searched him, and took him down to the police station. Then other cops went to his home and told his wife and 15-month-old baby to go down to the police station too. And then they searched his house without a warrant. Why? Why? What did he do? Nothing. He didn't do anything. They didn't find anything in the house when they searched it. They didn't find anything on him when they searched him. A warrantless arrest and strip search and search of his house. Why? Because his 4-year-old daughter drew a picture of a gun. Seriously. So her kindergarten teacher called Family and Children's Services. Seriously. And they called the cops. Seriously. And they arrested him and searched him seriously because a kid drew a picture of a gun. Now, I understand that some kids, especially young boys, sometimes draw pictures of robots with lasers, too, and superjet fighter planes. Maybe we should arrest their parents as well. The 4-year-old didn't just draw a picture of a gun. Her school claims that she said her dad fought against monsters. Maybe we should search the family home for monsters. I bet the chances are good there's a monster in the house. Maybe a cookie monster. Maybe there's a mutant ninja turtle. Better get on it. I bet her dad fights dragons too. Just ask her. Yeah, ask the 4-year-old. Maybe get some cops to interrogate her down at the police station too. Now, there was no gun in the house. There was no reasonable suspicion that there would be a gun in the house. But the thing about guns and houses is that's not illegal. Even under the Liberals, there was a gun registry, not a gun ban. So even if there had been a gun in the home, that is not a crime. That is not a reason to strip search and handcuff and humiliate a man and to freak out his young family. Now, I don't know this Sansone, but apparently he's trustworthy enough in the eyes of the school that they actually offered him a job there a few years ago. And now they handcuff him because his daughter drew a picture. What's the excuse given by Waterloo Regional Police? Inspector Kevin Thaler says it was done, quote, for officer safety because it's a firearms-related incident, unquote. Sorry, did you just call a child's doodle a firearms incident? Are you that bag of hammers stupid? Is there so little crime in Waterloo that 3 policemen are dispatched because a kindergarten kid drew a gun? Did you also call the Army because she talked about monsters? Did you also call the Agriculture Ministry about this giant beanstalk she's talking about? Did you call an ambulance because Jack and Jill went up a hill and Jack fell down and needs a paramedic? That moron Thaler, yeah, that cop, I'm calling you a moron, you moron. He said this, quote, at the point in the investigation when it was determined it was not a real firearm, the individual was released unconditionally, he said. Sorry, determined that was not a real gun? What, how long did it take you to determine that the crayon scribble was not a real gun? They had to determine that, really. There was never anything real, but a kindergarten teacher and a, roll it ahead please, and a Family and Children's Services bureaucrat and a principal and 3 police had to stand around and really look at that crayon picture hard to make sure it wasn't real. And they had to strip search a man and handcuff him and conduct a warrantless search of his home and humiliate him before they could determine that it was just a crayon drawing by a 4-year-old, did they? Hey, morons, here's a cartoon drawing. Look closely. You see a crime? I do. Someone is driving without their hands on the steering wheel. Better call in the artist's parents and arrest them and search their house without a warrant. The cops were stupid. We pay cops not to be stupid. We pay them not to be political or bitchy or to take sides in personal vendettas. They're supposed to be the grown-ups. They're supposed to use their discretion. A child's drawing of a gun, which does not even depict a crime, by the way, is not a public safety matter. It is not a police matter. We've come to expect this anti-family snitch style of justice from Family and Children's Services. They regularly abuse families with whom they simply disagree about things like the style of parenting or even just religion. Here's Allison Scott, the Executive Director of Family and Children's Services, giving her view. Let me quote. From a public safety point of view, any child drawing a picture of guns and saying there's guns in the home would warrant some further conversation with the parents and child. And then she went on to say, quote, our community would have an expectation. If comments are made about a gun in the house, we'd be obligated to investigate that to ensure everything is safe, unquote. Really? Really? The community would expect you to be a gun inspector now, that you now investigate homes for guns without search warrants, that you now have the powers that the RCMP doesn't? Really? So merely owning a firearm is a public safety matter, a family safety matter, and if schools hear children talking about it or crayoning about it, then it's time for an intervention. There are millions of guns in Canada, legally. There have been guns in Canada long before we invented the nanny state or busybodies like the Family and Children's Services. But the thing about Allison Scott is that she didn't actually have that conversation with parents and child, did she? She didn't give the parents the courtesy of a phone call or a casual inquiry. She didn't stay calm and stay normal. She went into nanny state mode. She went into KGB mode. She cut the family right out of it, didn't she? I mean, look at that quote again. She said, quote, it would warrant some further conversation with parents, unquote. But she didn't have a conversation at all with them, let alone a further conversation. She went to the cops, and they were too stupid to talk to the parents also. Now, this guy, Jesse, was told he'd be kept overnight in jail, and he'd have to go before a judge to post bail, my friend. I got two questions for you. First, where's the liberal media? You know, the ones who freaked out just a few days ago when Public Safety Minister Vic Taves proposed a law to allow police to get basic information about their internet use. Taves just wanted to let cops get your email address and have to get a search warrant for anything more. Well, here we have a child's crayon drawing leading directly to a strip search, handcuffing, home invasion. Where's the freak out? You mean the liberal media actually doesn't care about civil liberties when it's, say, a property rights issue or a firearms issue? Well, what possible other excuse could there be for their silence? Okay, here's another question. This fellow, the guy who was searched, his name is Jessie Sansone. Question, do you think the police would have done a warrantless home invasion if his name was Mohammed Shafia or Mohammed Atta? You know what I'm talking about. You sure do. And you know the answer is, of course they wouldn't. And you know that the arrest would have been front page of the Toronto Star and the lead story on the CBC if it had been Mohammed Shafia. That's the thing about civil liberties, though. It can't just be for pornographers, can't just be for Muslim terrorist suspects. Civil liberties have to be there for lawful gun owners and parents of creative little girls who are dangerous enough to draw a crayon gun and talk about monsters to their teachers. Yes? Yes, little one. Yes, 4-year-old girl. There are monsters in the world. Monsters who would hold up Pavlik Morozov as an example for young people everywhere. Monsters who would put an innocent family through hell for a day and claim that they were morally righteous to do so. What an outrageous story. I mean, if these were criminals, it would be a home invasion, it would be an unlawful arrest, even a kidnapping. I mean, it's such an abusive thing done in the name of the law. Well, a man who won't stand for this is our friend Solomon Friedman. He joins us now from Ottawa. Solomon, you're a lawyer, you're a gun rights lawyer, because having a gun is a right, even in Canada, am I right?
Well, the Supreme Court has called it a privilege, but certainly a gun owner has the same rights as any other Canadians to be free from a warrantless search or seizure or an arbitrary arrest, which is precisely what happened in this case.
You know, the crazy thing is, he's not even a gun owner as far as I can tell. They searched his house. They even searched his body. They gave him a strip search, Solomon. There's no gun on him or in his home. I read in the papers, we've been trying to track down this Jessie Sansone to talk to him, but I read in the paper from Waterloo that the cops asked him while he was naked in jail to sign, oh yeah, what you're doing is okay, you can go through my stuff. That sounds like an outrageous thing. If this was a third world country where someone signed some jailhouse confession, we would laugh at it and call it Amnesty International. Tell me about the bad behavior from the cops. List for me what the cops did wrong and how they broke the law.
Well, I think the bad behavior in this case started even before the police became involved. This started as a 4-year-old's, a kindergartner's drawing of her dad using a gun to protect her from bad guys. Just, you know, a comic book type of depiction. The teacher reacts, overreacts, the principal overreacts, the social service agency is called in, and this is forwarded to the police. This should have been shut down in the classroom. This is an innocent drawing. Whatever comments were made that accompanied it certainly didn't call for the calling in of a police force to arrest, humiliate, and strip search a man. We have an arbitrary arrest here. They didn't seem to have any grounds to believe this person had committed an offense or illegally possessed a firearm, yet they take him down to the station, it appears. They strip search him, which they say was for officer safety. You need specific grounds to justify a strip search, and they detain him and question him, all without any evidence whatsoever of a criminal offense.
Not just that, Solomon, but even when he was down at the station, even when they were strip searching him and humiliating him, even when they went to his family and took his wife and 15-month baby out of the family home, they still didn't tell him what the fuss was about. I quoted from the social services KGB agent who said, "We'd like to have a conversation with parents." BS, Solomon. They never even told him what the fuss was about, and I think I know why. Because it was so stupid. If they would have said, oh, your child drew a picture in crayon, that's why you're arresting you. They knew what they were doing was stupid and abusive and high-handed, but they did it anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, we have to look at the genesis of this problem. How do things like this happen in a free, allegedly free and democratic country like Canada? And the answer is simple. We have had decade after decade of repressive gun control laws that have done more than simply burden gun owners with the possibility of criminal sanction. They have created a stigma around the mere ownership of firearms. You know, this kindergarten teacher should have been aware it's not a crime to own a gun in Canada. It's not a crime to use a gun lawfully in Canada. Whatever was depicted in this drawing was not a criminal matter. But the fact of the sheer overreaction tells us that we need to see a culture shift. Gun owners should not be treated like criminals, and that starts at the very top. It starts from the politicians and the police chiefs on down. Until that changes, we are going to see some egregious breaches of people's rights in the future. I think this is just a sign of things to come unless we turn things around quickly.
Unbelievable. Solomon, I wish I could disagree with you. I wish I was saying you were pessimistic, but you're not. Even though we have abolished the registry, this kind of abusive treatment continues. I don't think this Jessie Sansone has the confidence to take on the state. I don't think he will sue them. But just in the 30 seconds that are remaining, if this happened to you, what lawsuits would you be filing now against this stupid teacher, stupid social services KGB agent, and stupid cop? There were 5 cops involved here. What would you be doing to fight back if it was you, Solomon?
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting. Usually when you have an unreasonable or an unlawful search that leads to charges, the best you can hope for is maybe to have the evidence excluded or to have the charges dismissed. But there is something else that the Supreme Court has told us. When your constitutional rights are breached, you can also be entitled in some circumstances to a significant financial compensation. In this case, if an ordinary citizen put you in the back of a car, stripped you naked, and interrogated you, you would certainly be able to sue for damages. And the courts have told us that police are held to that same standard. Unless they can justify it, and at this point, you know, that remains to be seen, they will certainly be on the line for violating this man's rights and potentially having engaged in other unlawful activities.
Unbelievable. Solomon Friedman, so glad to have you back on the show. You keep safe, my friend.
My pleasure. Take